Working with a true expert is an experience unlike any other, knowing they have the knowledge, experience, adaptability, and judgment to serve you and those you love is something special. As a trusted guide through the most important times in my clients' lives, I have realized that these experts are all around us and I want to know more. I'm Brandon Ayers, and I've searched near and far for the people I consider to be experts in their field, interest, or hobby. As it turns out, they're just like us. I've invited one of them here today to join me as we take a deep dive into what places them among the true, everyday experts. Welcome to Everyday Experts with Brandon Ayers. I am Brandon Ayers, owner of Legacy and Life Law Firm, and I'm really excited for today's episode. I have a lifelong friend here, Jess Pearson. She's a teacher of the deaf, but she's also an advocate for pregnancy and postpartum psychosis, and that's what we're going to kind of talk about here today. But thank you so much, Jess, for being here.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. I've been really excited for it. So I always like to start with what I call got a second. So I just kind of knock on the door and just chat about something. And we've known each other for a long time. So I know our mutual interests and where we really became really good friends within theater. So a question for you today is, if you had to work kind of any job or role on any show, what would you do? What would you want to do?
If I were to be in a show like today, I would absolutely love it. I feel like I would love the show Hamilton.
Okay.
And I would love to be Eliza.
Oh, you would?
I would. Actually, we saw that together.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, you took me.
I love that show.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like it. Strong women. And you think you're going to go and learn so much about Hamilton, but really the show is actually kind of about her.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. So Eliza would be the one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. That's really interesting. Maybe I thought you'd be like Aaron Burr.
Oh, Aaron.
Do you want to be Aaron Burr? No?
I'd be the best Aaron Burr, right? That'd be so good.
You'd be so good. All that, you're always a go-getter, just pushing people out of the way to get whatever you want.
I just want to be in the room where it happens.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So, I want to, talk, and, obviously, knowing what you've been through with postpartum psychosis and all that, one thing I just want to say kind of off the bat is, how proud I am of you. Going to a dark place is one thing, and making it back out of it is a completely another thing, right? So, I'm like I say, I'm really proud of you for getting to such a positive place. And you've always had a positive mindset, but that's a different thing than just a bad day, right? That's a totally different haul to get back to a good place with it. And as a friend, honestly, I feel like I should have been there to do more, but at the same time, it's a tough thing because you don't know about it, and I know I've heard you talk before about, everybody after birth of a child is always like, oh, how's the baby, and you certainly know how's the mom, how's she doing, all that kind of stuff. So I guess we can start there, because this could have gone a lot of different ways for you, right? Yeah. A lot of where we're not sitting here today in a lot of different respects, right? So what do you have to say, about, people, that are struggling with really almost any kind of mental health, but postpartum psychosis and that stuff, to get over the hiding it and all this head trash that comes into that kind of thing.
Yeah. Thank you for for having me here and for allowing me to talk about postpartum psychosis, because people don't talk about it. Yeah. And that is the biggest reason why there's so many tragedies. Yeah. And it's so stigmatized.
Yep.
And I just want to break that. I want to stop, rewrite that narrative, because everybody says mothers who are affected, or people who are affected by postpartum psychosis, are terrible mothers. Mm-hmm. We never wanted to be mothers. And it's it's the exact opposite. Most people I know who have, all the people I know who have experienced postpartum psychosis are amazing parents and love their children so much, and are protective of their children. It can happen to any person. So one thing I want to say is it's not rare. You see oftentimes in the medical professional medical field, that is so rare, and I hate that so much.
Yeah.
Because people are like, oh, it's rare, it's not going to happen to me, it won't happen to me.
Yeah.
And that that wording needs to change, because it's not rare. It can affect any person, and there are things that can make it more risky
Yeah.
for people to have, which I can talk more in depth about.
Yeah.
But yeah, people need to check in with the parents after having a baby. I am obsessed.
Yeah.
To the point where
course.
how are you doing? How
Yeah.
are you doing?
Yeah.
Because people hide it. They don't want to be associated with an illness where they become psychotic.
Right. Well, even think just practically, the newborn pictures, right? You know how you're feeling, but you put on the makeup and the cute outfit and all that stuff, and you smile. It's kind of like the extension of that kind of attitude when you're putting yourself out there, even for friends and family, that you want to appear that everything's fine, because that's how it's supposed to be the best, and to admit anything else is, threatening validity of being a parent.
Yes.
In a lot of ways.
100%. Social media makes it so much worse. I remember my first Mother's Day. I was probably a month, a little bit past a month, into becoming a mom, and I was in bed. I had hot flashes. I just couldn't eat. I remember my husband, Jim, he made this best breakfast, and I should have been so happy, right? But it wasn't me not being happy because I was a new mom.
Yeah.
It was just, I was affected by what I was diagnosed as postpartum depression, but I wasn't it. And I just I could not for a long time just get out of bed. But on Facebook, I'm posing with my baby, and I put the happy in Mother's Day with the babe she had, and nobody would have known. To the point where even my closest friends, I didn't tell you all. I didn't tell my high school friends. Even Jim, his family, I begged him not to tell his family what was happening with me, because it was so, I was so embarrassed.
Yeah.
I thought people wouldn't think I was a good mom, that my sister-in-law was pregnant at the same time, and supposed to have her baby very soon after.
Yeah.
I was just embarrassed. I thought people would compare us, and I didn't want to scare her too. It was just so much.
Yeah.
So much. But
so is the cure for that just, you could say awareness, but just being, because you mentioned, it not being rare, right? So if you start a conversation even at that point, and then people can understand that, hey, this is happening and it's normal, and it's more of reporting your car stolen. It's not, it's something that happens. It's not fun, but it's not it doesn't define who you are. It's not like a self judgment type of thing either.
Yeah, definitely. Doing it, talking about it only when tragedies happen too.
Yeah,
it's just the
true.
worst thing possible, because then you're associating it with tragedies, and that causes people to not want to reach out, reach out for help, because it's so associated to, oh, you want to kill your kid. That's what people think. I hear people say, look, oh, I'm not like that. I don't want to kill my kid or anything. And I hate that, because no person who is affected by postpartum psychosis wants to kill their kid that.
Yeah.
That even though I had command hallucinations.
Yep.
I never wanted to hurt my child, and I know that it's the same for others. So that the media only talking about it when there's tragedies, or that parents want to do these things. We're being it is a outside force that you can't control.
Right.
I don't know. It's not always like that either.
Right.
Can show up in different ways.
Yeah. I have a question for you on the hallucination side of things. With being hard of hearing, I'm sure, I don't know if there's been research on it, but it had to have been extra scary because having those things come by so clearly, right? Is that true? Was that like
Yeah.
extra, like for the hard of hearing and deaf community,
Yeah.
when there's that kind of auditory hallucination? I'm sure that has to really throw you because it's unlike anything you really probably hear.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people are curious, like, how did you hear voices?
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
Yeah, even with my hearing aid off, which for the longest time, like right after
Yeah.
my daughter was born, I refused to take my hearing aid off because I'm completely deaf without them on, or
Yeah.
without them on. So I was afraid that I wouldn't hear her, which I would not have anyway.
Right.
But even eventually, like, it took a long time for them to convince me that it would be okay to take off my hearing aid. But when I took my hearing aid off, I heard voices. Like my breast pump would talk with me. It felt like not that I even felt like it. It actually happened.
Yeah.
People are like, "Oh,
Yeah.
no, it actually happened. There was someone talking to me,
Yeah.
in kind of like a deep, kind of demon
Yeah.
voice, telling me what to do,
Right.
telling me that I should end my life,
Yep.
and that I was
Yeah.
better off without, or my family was better off without me."
Right.
So
But I'm sure, and then coming, that's like the first time ever that you've heard those heard any kind of voice with your hearing aid out. That has to be like super jarring and just throw you off completely.
Yeah.
When that happens.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely.
But did it make it feel like it was harder to overcome, or was it just, I don't,
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the analogy I would go through, we've joked about this in the past, is, if you get sick of gym, right, you can just take your hearing off and close and not what.
Fight is done.
Yeah. But that you couldn't escape. No. You couldn't do that.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it was so scary, because it wasn't like, oh, I'm just like imagining this, or oh, like mishearing it. I could not get away from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It was so scary. But what was also scary, like as a deaf woman being in the hospital, because I was hospitalized for 12 days.
Yeah.
This is access for deaf, women or deaf people. The phone call hours, it was only phone call, and lucky for me, I can hear a little bit on the phone.
Yeah.
But deaf people who don't have that ability to hear some voice, they don't have that.
Right.
Or they made me take my hearing aid off because they were afraid I would swallow the battery.
Right.
And my roommate didn't want to be my roommate. She was scared. She was schizophrenic, and she refused. She did not want to be my roommate because she thought someone would kill me in the middle of the night because I couldn't hear. And she didn't want to be blamed for that. So,
wow.
It was.
Well, that kind of brings up a good point too, because there's a lot of areas where there's, even with the proper diagnosis, the proper care doesn't follow, and I think that's double. You just touched on it. It's doubly true when you have a hearing aid, or other, when you're not just in one group, that you're in two that can fail both on the phone side, which obviously doesn't help your mental health being completely isolated, right?
Right.
And then also have the psychosis side of things. So can we talk about access to care and what the world looks like for women with going through this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so many things I could talk about with this, but probably, aside from hearing voices and seeing things that weren't there and having these command hallucinations that I had, access, I hated. It was so traumatic that I had to be not with my daughter.
Yeah.
That having to be on a psych hospital, and not understanding why, and I just gave birth and my daughter is gone. I thought she was dead. I thought I was dead. I I don't know. It was just weird to be on a floor where people had different mental health issues, but it was nothing related to being a new mother.
Right.
It's almost like you forgot you just gave birth.
Yeah.
So one thing I absolutely feel like we need to have in the U.S. is mother baby or parent baby units.
Okay.
Because here in the U.S. we don't have that where the baby can stay with you in the hospital like overnight.
Yeah.
I know in the UK they have that. The baby can stay. Someone you love can stay at the hospital. So you feel like, okay, I have purpose. You know why you're here, what you're doing. You need to get better. Whereas I think there's only 3 hospitals in the US where it's not a mother-baby unit where the baby can stay overnight for insurance reasons. They don't allow that. That's like specifically a U.S. thing that we need to get past. We need to overcome that. But they just started a hospital where like the baby and the parent or caretaker can come and visit and then leave and come and visit and then leave. But my situation, they did not have that.
Right.
I could not be with my baby because they said it's not safe.
Right. Yeah, so they have obviously the safety of the baby and insurance and all that stuff they want to take care of. But what is it like in the UK for and this is I assume the mother baby units like applied not just to postpartum psychosis but all sorts of things that can occur where the mother and baby might be separated because of a healthcare issue. I assume that's probably true. There's probably other things. But what does it look like? What is like a mother? Okay, you can stay, but in this situation where there is this postpartum psychosis, they would have. I assume do they have like the other partner supervising or some of medical professionals supervising or what does it look like practically? What does it look like?
I feel like it would. In a dream world, like here in the U.S., if somebody you loved that you trusted, and that is a little bit hard because when you're in psychosis, you don't trust
anybody
as much.
Yeah.
Like Jim is the love of my life, but I did not trust him. I thought he was the devil. So that is a little bit hard. But
I got a solution for that already. Don't worry. Keep going. I'll tell you what it is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, somebody that you love to take, and then having your baby be able to come and stay with you would be incredible. And obviously there'd have to be someone who would monitor just for safety reasons. But really, why can't the partner just be there to help and take care of the baby?
Yeah, especially if they do some sort of screening or something.
Right.
You have to make sure they're in the right spot too.
Right.
Because I'm sure, and from a medical side, it has to improve the outcomes.
Right.
Your mental health has to get better when you're not isolated from your baby, and there has to be a way to keep them safe and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So you'd have to think that would improve it. The solution, by the way, so doing what I do, the power of attorney, where you name people to make healthcare choices for you. For example, if you're in a place where you can't make it for yourself, part of the pre-birth, preparation and orders could be if something happens where I have postpartum psychosis, here's who I'd want to be able to stay with me, so that your trusting mind has made that choice already, and then they can deal with whatever psychosis issues are. I mean, it'd just be a simple form to be in that doesn't exist.
That's perfect,
So
Brandon.
I told you.
Why aren't you doing this work? Come on.
I'll get to it tomorrow.
Okay. Get on it.
Yeah. No, but something like that.
That's what we need.
But that would because you touched on probably what the biggest stumbling block my cynical brain would go to is the insurance side.
Right.
That's just the way health systems work. So if you could make the insurers feel comfortable not having the liability of a tragedy or even just practical things, a baby being malnourished because they're in the hospital and the mother can't feed it or whatever it is, all the issues that could come up. And with by the mother and other parent making that choice while the sun was shining, everybody's healthy, that to me would take the liability off of the insurance. And so it opened, I think, all these doors to
Absolutely. There's so many ways that we could work around it. I mean, parents or the caretaker can sign things. It makes me so mad because they put so much focus on like breastfeeding and breastfeeding is best, and they give out these free pumps, which this is wonderful. Like I think that's wonderful. But if people are so focused on like the bonding of baby and parent and how human milk is so
Yeah.
important, then why would you feel it would be okay to separate
Yeah.
a parent for bonding reasons?
Or at least
I
not, at least take out all the obstacles that you can take.
right.
You know, not to have a simple insurance liability.
Mm-hmm.
If these effects of all this stuff is so great for the mother and the child,
Yeah.
then why wouldn't you do everything you can
Mm-hmm.
to put people in that situation,
Right.
especially when they're hurting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Antipsychotic medicines too, like you can still breastfeed a lot
Yeah.
with.
Well, that kind of brings up another topic is like, because I know we've talked about this before, is sometimes medical professionals aren't even up to speed on, that was one of the issues, right? Is whether the antipsychotics that you have to take for the postpartum psychosis are safe enough for breastfeeding. And there's kind of, like anything else, there's new and evolving medication and research to show things, but it doesn't trickle down to the floor staff, the people that are working the real crisis, trying to keep people safe, which you get. But, can you talk a little about that, like how the medical professional side, how to get them better educated?
Absolutely. You mentioned like the medical staff and how they need training, and absolutely, like they need training, and not just like postpartum depression. Everybody knows about postpartum depression, kind of, not really, but like psychosis also. But not just staff. Think about it. Police officers are often first responders. They know nothing. Often they don't know anything about that. So they think when people are making tragedies, or not making, when tragedies are happening, police officers aren't realizing, maybe this mother had postpartum psychosis. They don't think like that. So there needs to be training for medical staff. There needs to be training for police officers, for
social workers, I'm sure.
Yeah, social workers, and like anyone you could think of that would be, coming to.
And frankly, the legal world, like I mentioned, legal and liability needs to catch up to it too, which is always slow. But when you get to like mental health in general and psychosis, especially when tragedies happen, is pretty cynically viewed, right?
Yeah,
It's seen as an excuse that they make up when they get together with their lawyers, But if you had better understanding throughout this whole thing, then you can have even the public, even a jury, for example, would be in a better spot to be. And frankly, decipher between legitimate and illegitimate claims of things. Be able to say, "Oh, yeah, this is the standard. This is." You can see they checked off all the boxes on this journey to serious postpartum psychosis, or not, and now they're just using it as a crutch.
Absolutely, and the check boxes thing that you were talking about, the DSM-5. I know a lot of people focus on the DSM-5, where people diagnose. They look in the little manual and they say, this must be what they have. But really, in the DSM-5, I think it only says postpartum depression, and under it says sometimes, with psychotic features, but there's no actual specific in the right place mention of postpartum psychosis. And if anything is like related to that, it'll say within the first 3 months or something.
Okay.
I'm not sure specifically, but it's not. It can be within a year. It could be. There's so many things that I think a lot of people in general, but also lawyers, medical professionals, they don't understand. This is not like a black and white checkbox thing. It's just so.
Yeah.
We need to change the DSM-5 and include really specific, but also information that it changes based on the situation.
Well, I want to ask you something about that, because before, you were my experience with this, right?
Yeah.
So before that, I would have assumed that postpartum psychosis was like a very severe postpartum depression. And I have to imagine I wouldn't be alone in that. But my understanding now is that it's two completely different, because and that you alluded to earlier with the medication for one is contradictory in some cases for the other, and can worsen. So let's chat about that a little bit. Getting people to understand why it's so different than just a really bad or advanced severe depression.
Yeah. It's not. oh, we're really sad and depressed, and it can be a lot of different things. It can look like a lot of different things. Sometimes it's like unipolar,
Okay.
where someone is only depressed, or sometimes it's only mania where
Yeah.
you're seeing,
Okay.
or it's bipolar, which
Yeah.
you're depressed, but then you're also up. So like that's different ways you can see it, but also the difference really is between like anxiety, OCD, depression, all of that. You see things that are not there, or you're
Yeah.
hearing things that are not there, or you may have paranoia or delusions.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, if somebody is off,
Right.
then you'll know. You'll be like, oh, they're talking about things they usually don't
Right.
tend to talk about. There's not like oh, this is the red flag.
Right.
It could be something very simple. Like, I love mint chocolate chip ice cream.
Yeah.
And my husband tried to get that for me, and I said, no, I don't want it. And he was like, what? This is not my
Well,
wife.
yeah.
But it's not always as simple as that.
No. But if you know, but again, it's kind of building the awareness. If that's one isolated thing, that's like a silly story about a post-pregnancy. I stopped liking mint chocolate chip ice cream for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's it could very easily be the straw that he's like, okay, I've seen the mania, I've seen that she's not sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've heard her complain about whatever it is. And now all of a sudden that mint chocolate chip ice cream is like the canary in the coal mine. It's like, all right, now we got to get serious, because it's like as silly as it is, it's a core thing. Like, I've known her for 20 years and she's never denied me. So that can be, and it's a good example, I think, of a lot of kinds of mental health issues. Is if you take them seriously, things that otherwise might be silly, you can spot and be like, okay, let's pause, let's pump the brakes here a little bit. And let's check in. Let's stop, because, I mean, that could be, as silly as it sounds, but if that's the difference between somebody taking their own life or not, I mean, it really could be that.
Totally.
So let's treat it with that kind of weight, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know.
I want to kind of add something too.
Cool, of course.
Screening, like testing.
Yeah.
I know they have screening for postpartum depression.
Yeah.
But it's interesting how they do that. First, they don't test partners, which is that's interesting to me, because 1 in 10 dads can get postpartum depression. It's not to focus on that, but so why aren't we doing that?
Right.
And also, postpartum psychosis can show up not just at like that 2-week postpartum visit. We need to be checking in within the family regularly, because postpartum psychosis can be initiated by many different things, by birth, and sometimes from weaning off from breastfeeding, so many different things.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point, and that again is because that's a really practical, avoidable thing. Because when you go into like the 2-week checkup, for example, right, that's going to be one of the questions they ask about. But after the 2-week checkup, it's going to fall off, because that's the DSM-5. That's what they say. That's what insurance reimburses for. All these things are stacking up. So the medical professional, even the best, most well-intentioned ones, are going to have no chance to be screening or looking out for those things 8 months down the road, the 6-month checkup, the 1-year checkup, because it's not on their checklist, and it's not something, if they spot, that insurance is going to reimburse for. It's all the incentives are pointing in the wrong direction. When you unless you like actually build awareness and make people aware of what this disease is.
Yeah, and what about access to care? Like, what if someone only takes the train and their doctor is at specific time that's open, or they can't go, and then they don't even get the check-in, or people can't afford it, or they're on Medicaid, and then there's no, like, a lot of psychiatrists don't even accept Medicaid. So they're just like this whole
and that gets
range.
That gets another thing, where, like some other areas, mental health is seen as like a luxury. So that's why insurance doesn't cover it, because you can pay out of pocket. So now you got the socioeconomic factors involved
Yes,
as well.
and race too,
Yeah.
because I know so many women who they try to get help, and they're denied. Like they're like, I am not feeling right. I am seeing things. I am feeling suicidal, but doctors reject them,
Yeah.
and that needs to change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's just nothing to do but to start changing it. Like that's a big one.
And luxury is actually being able to go get help and go
Yeah.
to the hospital. For some people, it's like,
And be listened to. That's true.
yeah.
So, if we talked about a lot, what are some red flags here? If people are going through this as they're approaching welcoming, wonderful child in the world, what are some things spouses or people themselves can look for when they, as things progress, so they can spot it early and get treatment?
Yeah. To clarify, it can happen to like any
Yes,
person.
yeah, of course, yeah.
But some risk factors
Okay.
that to look for is if a person has a mental health history. I am bipolar and did not know that until after my second baby, which is a whole other thing. Like, why would people not ask those questions?
Yeah.
But I also have people in my family who are bipolar. I've had people in my family that have completed suicide. They died by suicide.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of trauma in my life, but that if there is sorry if I'm saying a lot. It's
No,
just
it's okay.
signing at the same time.
Yeah.
If there are people who have experienced trauma as a young kid, even as an adult, abuse, sexual abuse, a lot of things can affect that. Pressure, stressors of just maybe there's not a good relationship, not a lot of support, money. Maybe the pregnancy was a shock. Maybe there's a divorce. I mean, like there's so many things that can affect it. But even people like I was in a good relationship, am in a good relationship, had like wonderful support, and still got postpartum psychosis. And for red flags for me, in the beginning, it did not look like psychosis. It could have. Like, I did have a lot of mania, but people wouldn't really maybe say that it was mania. I was up. I mean, remember you came and visited me.
Yeah.
And when Lila was born, I was just gave birth, but I was up, like, taking pictures of the baby, like, holding her. Like, people are usually pretty tired after they give birth. I was not.
Yeah.
My mom did notice, what? How do you have this energy? So, but that's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just have a lot of energy.
Yeah.
I was very anxious, so me not being able to take my hearing aid off, that was kind of a red flag. But it makes sense. It makes sense. Like, oh, she's deaf. She might not. So there's a lot of things that, okay, you reason with.
Yeah.
But other red flags, I was crying a lot. Like the third day I came home, and I know people say, "Oh, that's a baby blue," like the baby blues.
Yeah.
But it never ended. Like it continued. That's why people thought, "Oh, maybe she has postpartum depression." They gave me that diagnosis. But then my breast pump would talk and say voices, and then I would wake up and I thought, oh my God, I accidentally suffocated my daughter because I fell asleep and I rolled on her. I thought all these things really happened, or I'd wake up. And then I say wake up because I never really slept.
Yeah.
I would maybe like doze off for maybe 30 minutes or an hour. But I would wake up and look in the pack and play, and she was not there. She was not there, my daughter. And Jim, I would be like, she's not there. And he would obviously be very upset because he also needed sleep, but he would look and say, she's right there. So things like that where I would obsess about her and her health. And some people would say, oh, that's postpartum anxiety. But it eventually changed because I wasn't sleeping.
Yeah.
That is a huge thing. It's hard to catch because new parents
Yeah,
don't
you're supposed
sleep.
to. It's like a
as
merit
much.
badge.
Yeah.
If you sleep too much, you're a bad parent. So
Right.
not sleeping, oh, you're doing great.
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
you're up.
Yeah.
You care so much. Yeah.
I hate that.
Yeah.
I probably even say that myself, like, oh, enjoy your sleep now.
Yeah.
But truly, if I could give advice to people, please try to sleep while the baby is sleeping. The house can wait. And then cleaning the house can wait. All of those things can wait. Like, if you can sleep, protect it, because that really spiraled me into...
Yeah, especially as the other hormones are all clearing out. It could be the difference between, something and something much worse.
Yeah. So not sleeping is a big thing.
Yeah.
There's paranoia too.
Uh-huh.
I remember thinking people were watching me through the window.
Okay.
And I was like, Jim, we have to close the windows. And I was going around. He's like, what? What's wrong? I was like, they're watching me breastfeed. I am uncomfortable. And there'd be nobody there.
Yeah.
But for me, they were there. They were right there.
Okay.
And there'd be like secret messages happening, talking to me on the TV.
Oh, okay.
Or people in doorways, like with a knife, like very specific things.
Yeah.
The hardest thing for me of all that was these like command hallucination thoughts that would happen, telling me to do very, very specific things to my daughter that were not nice, and to myself. And I never wanted those things, so they did scare me. I was very, very scared of it, but I couldn't not think about that, or I almost felt like someone was doing it for me, doing things for me, like I was kind of like a puppet. So I'm very, very lucky, because I remember calling the suicide hotline. I remember begging for help, and they brought me back and said, no, you'll be fine. You'll start an anxiety OCD program on Monday.
Yeah.
And I was having these awful thoughts about my daughter and hurting my daughter that I didn't want. But I felt like if I did not get help, what I was thinking would happen.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's tough. And it's to be put behind like business hours when the weekend's over, we'll get you some help.
Yeah.
That's
pretty
like, cold, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, you're just having anxiety and OCD. What?
Yeah.
No, this is not OCD and anxiety.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like I say, I'm really proud of you, because it's one thing just to get through it and move on. It's another to really, frankly, have to confront it, in situations like this, and be so open and honest about it to try and help other people is really admirable. And I appreciate that you do for that. So
the best thing you can do is talk about it.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, so I always end all these podcasts with the same 4 questions I like to ask everybody. So, so we're going to transition to that. So the first question in the 4-pack here is your favorite book to recommend to a friend.
So this is hard. I think one of my favorite books, but I read it a long time ago, so it's kind of hard, was Time Traveler's Wife.
Okay.
I loved it. I don't know why. I loved being in this world that was just time travel. I don't know. It was very cool. However, if I were to go to, even still, I would say Harry Potter.
Okay, Harry Potter.
Harry Potter, I love it.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. It's good for kids. It's good for adults. It's just, I love it.
Yeah, no, it's a good story. I remember, obviously, that's when we were kind of growing up.
I know. I think we read the last books together.
Yeah, together. Yeah. So even those memories are warm with that.
What did you say? You mumbled. What did you say?
Oh, I said even those memories are warm. For even just because it's like for us, it's like
Harry Potter, and just
that time of life.
Yeah. Luna Lovegood. She is just
yes, she is.
She's my person. I love her so much.
Well, and I've talked about one of my biggest analogies when I talk with people about my life is when you can see the horses right after you go through something really difficult, a little bit of the magic is gone, and that's a really spot on analogy. I think the world just looks a little different. You can see the horses pulling the carriage. I think it's a very wise way to put that.
You see life differently.
Yeah.
You have purpose.
Yep.
Yep.
Next question. What's your go-to stand at the farmer's market?
Okay, this is an easy one. I love kettle corn.
Oh, okay, yeah,
I love
know
it.
that.
It's sweet, it's salty, it's amazing, and I love it like when it's fresh, hot. I love that.
What was that back when we were kids? There was it wasn't a Renaissance fair, but it was something old timey where they made the kettle corn like over the fire in the kettle. It was like
Yeah, like-
at the state park or something like that. It was like they had like little tents out, and they would do the kettle corn there. So
Fiesta days?
No,
or
it wasn't. It
something
wasn't one like that.
No?
It was like something we go like on field trips to like
Yeah.
Glacier Park or something like that, and
Oh,
they'd have like
yeah,
tents out,
yeah.
and it was all people dressed up old timey,
Mm-hmm.
and they always had really good kettle corn there because
Yes.
they just make it like in like a cast iron pot.
It is the best champ snack.
All
I
right.
love it.
Okay, so then if you had to start over and start your own thing today, just do something completely different, what would you do?
I would, if I could like go back in time and completely change. I got to take two things. I have to
Okay.
tell you two things
Okay,
because
you're gonna
is that
cheat.
okay? Am I
Nah,
cheating?
you do whatever you want at this point. It's there. You're gonna do it.
I have to. I have to
Okay.
do. I'm gonna give you two. Well, I love theater so much. You
Okay.
know that.
Yeah.
So I would love to interpret for shows.
Yeah.
I would be obviously like a terrible interpreter because I'm deaf myself, so I can't like interpret shows because I need an interpreter. But my theory here, I could like team tag with a hearing person.
Okay.
They could be an interpreter too, and I'd be a certified deaf interpreter. I'd memorize the lines because I can be, an actress. And then I could go back and forth and do whatever Broadway show I desired. I could be Eliza. I could be in Hair. I could do so much. I would
Yep.
love that so much.
Okay.
My
Other one. Yeah. Second one.
I'm
The
sorry.
bonus. That's okay.
I would love to do what is that? If you what is that? Oh, a park ranger.
Oh, okay.
I love nature. I love hiking. Just nature is just like my favorite.
Yeah.
But I'm very scared of bears and
Okay.
snakes and things
Well,
like that. So I might
that-
not be very good at that.
Well, I think that'd make you fine that. I don't think that'd be a disqualifier.
No?
'Cause
Yeah.
you're not supposed to be around bears and snakes.
Yeah.
So you'd be very good at getting people away from bears and snakes.
Yeah, like right, exactly,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But I feel like I would not protect the people. I would just run.
Oh.
I would just run.
Okay.
I should.
Well,
I
you
feel like though my
just runs with your arms outstretched, and then you'll just catch the people like
Yeah.
like that as you're running.
Yeah, exactly. Also, I'm deaf, so I don't know if I
Oh,
would
yeah.
like really.
Well, well, to
identify.
be honest, the predators are quiet anyway. You're never going to hear them. They're going to sneak up on you. So that's not a
Yeah,
negative
that's
thing
true.
too. So I think you're fine.
true.
I think you got it. I think you got it.
What if I like didn't have those two answers and
Okay.
I like kind of combine them and I would like do Shakespeare
In the
in the
park.
park,
As long
interpreting
but there's no bears or snakes.
with
'Cause
nature.
the bears and snakes aren't in the park because those are I could do it.
Yeah.
There you are.
That's
think
what
we
I would
found
do.
it. Okay. Then the last question here. So you're at the pearly gates or whatever, and they say, "Hey, Jess, you can go and just sit and watch any 5 minutes. Anything for 5 minutes. You sit and watch. Can't interact. Can't do anything like that. And what 5 minutes are you watching?"
This was kind of hard, but my first instinct
Yep.
is to watch both my babies be born.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
I feel like I missed a lot of that experience because you're giving birth obviously.
Yeah.
So it'd be cool to see myself be really super strong, to see Jim's reaction, to see her and him like be born, and I want to see that without being
In labor.
yeah
Yeah.
yeah, that would be amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a very good answer. That's a very good answer. But
Thank you.
but thank you so much, Jess, for coming in and talking and taking the time to do that. I really appreciate it. It's been thank you for being my friend too. Let's do the math on it real quick. So it was 6th grade, so that would be
I thought it was 4th grade.
no. We might have crossed paths, and I moved in 4th grade, but it was band when we
Yeah.
started band because the saxophones were right in front of the drums. So
True.
that's when you and Andy were right there, and I was right behind you guys. So I think that's when it first started.
That's
So that would be like 1996.
Yeah.
So that's a long time ago.
Didn't you go to like my family's church or like your family?
Not right away.
and
No,
my
that was later
family's
on.
Church? Oh,
That was later
okay.
on. That was like in high school. I started going.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we went to a
okay.
different one first. But
Yeah, much later. I
yeah,
see.
yeah. So I think it's call it
So
late
then,
90s.
bam.
So let's call it 25 years, just to be round numbers. How about
And
that?
we're soon going to be celebrating our 40th birthday. What?
Yeah. You are. I'm not turning 40. You are.
Oh, okay. You're older.
Yeah.
He's older.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Jess, so much. And such an important thing to get the word out on. I really appreciate your openness and all that. And, just want to appreciate you and say thank you.
Thank you for inviting me
Yeah.
to come here. Thank you for doing your part, by talking about this too.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
And
your
thank you
friendship.
guys for listening. We're, just getting up there in time. But thank you. Appreciate it. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Be kind to each other. See ya.
Bye.